Hey you, caught in the mood for a pour? Today we are opening California Blanc de Blanc that doesn't try to cosplay champagne. It builds its own prestige the hard way, with a state fruit, méthode traditionnelle, and 6 full years of patience. This is Rêve, Domaine Carneros' tête de cuvée. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly what's in the glass, why it matters, and where this dream earns her price tag on the sip score. Let's take her from grape to glass. Welcome to Sip Me Maybe, the channel where we swirl, sip, and spill the truth about what's in your glass. I'm Julia, a sommelier with strong opinions and a soft spot for a good pour. I'll share what I'm tasting, what I've discovered, and you are always welcome to share what lights up your palate. Friend to friend, let's take this one from grape to the glass. Today we're talking about Domaine Carneros, California estate with real vision and champagne level discipline. I've got their sparkling lineup in front of me, but let's be honest, there's one bottle that steals the focus. Rêve, tête de cuvée, the American dream done properly. We are pouring Blanc de Blanc, 100% estate-grown Chardonnay, and specifically, the version that spends a full 6 years resting on its lees. That's the difference here, not the marketing, time. Le Rêve is vintage dated, aged and tirage, quietly developing in bottle before it ever sees the light of the day. And Domaine Carneros even takes it further with the Le Rêve late disgorgement, letting some bottles rest closer to 9 years on its lease. And today, we are diving into what I like to call the 6-year American dream. Domaine Carneros holds a unique place in California wine history. Founded in 1987 by the Taittinger family of Champagne, it became the first champagne house to build a dedicated sparkling wine estate in the United States. At the time when California sparkling was still fighting for credibility, the chateau itself was modeled after Chateau de la Marqueterie, Taittinger's historic home in Champagne, signaling long-term intent from day one. This wasn't a license deal or brand exercise. It was a family decision rooted in heritage and independence, made before sparkling wine had cultural moment in California. Carneros climate does the heavy lifting. Cool air from San Pablo Bay rolls in daily, bringing fog and wind that slow ripening and protects acidity. Days warm just enough for flavor to develop, but nights stay cool, stretching the growing seasons and keeping the fruit focused rather than plush. The soils are equally disciplined, clay loam with maritime influence offering just enough water retention to avoid vine stress, while encouraging steady, even ripening. The result, Chardonnay with structure, finesse, and natural balance. Fruit that can withstand long lease aging without losing the edge. This is why Carneros works for sparkling wine, not because it's generous, but because it knows when to hold back. This Blanc de Blanc sits around 12% alcohol and crisp pH near 3.1, a combination that keeps the wine bright, food-friendly, and naturally stable, even after years on lease. That low pH means freshness is preserved without chemical correction. The balance is grown in the vineyard, not fixed in the cellar. And because Le Rêve is vintage dated, each release carries the fingerprint of its year. Yet the consistency, precision, and house style remain so steady that it's a level of repeatability many historic maisons would envy. And then the real craftsmanship begins. Le Rêve is produced using méthode traditionnelle, with primary fermentation in stainless steel, a deliberate choice to preserve freshness, lift, and precision before the long rest begins. The long rest is what builds creamy texture, brioche warmth, and seamless integration without needing loud tricks. Time is the ingredient. Most sparkling houses consider 3 years on lease a serious commitment. Domaine Carneros says, well, that's cute. Rêve gets 6. Rêve is 100% Chardonnay, estate grown, vintage dated, no blending shortcuts. This is Chardonnay allowed to fully articulate itself through sight and time. Tasting profile. On the nose, Rêve opens with restraint, not fireworks. Ripe pear, baked apple, and lemon curd lead the way. Then the dream turns towards citrus oil and soft, toasty warmth. There is a quiet, analytic depth here, brioche, warm pastry, and a touch of cream, but nothing shouts. On the palate, the mousse is fine and persistent, cushioning flavors of citrus oil, stone fruit, and roasted nuts. The acidity is present but civilized, supporting the wine rather than steering it. The finish is long, layered, and composed, lingering just enough to make you take another sip before you realize you already have. It's American Chardonnay speaking softly, ripe, expressive, and held firmly in check. What do you pair this wine with? Brown butter popcorn with flakes of sea salt. Acidity cuts through butter, Lee's notes mirror the nuttiness, and the mousse lifts the salt, rich but never heavy. Dungeness crab with lemon aioli. Bright acidity balances the aioli. Chardonnay texture supports the crab, and citrus stays clean, not bitter. Conch cheese, aged 18-24 months. Acidity cuts the fat. Autolytic notes echo the nuttiness, and the mousse softens the salt. Roasted cauliflower with hazelnut and lemon zest. Structure supports the roast. Acidity reigns in the bitterness, and citrus ties everything together. Rêve, with a moment of silence, balanced acidity, fine mousse, and Lee's driven texture make this wine complete on its own. Grape composition. Single varietal, estate-grown Chardonnay, vintage-dated and uncompromised, built for clarity, texture, and near-term elegance. Compared to theoretical 100-point Blanc de Blanc, built for extreme longevity and crystalline tension, think Dom Ruina Blanc de Blanc. Le Rêve reads slightly richer and broader on the palate. California Chardonnay brings generosity and body. And while that's a stylistic strength, it places the wine closer to opulence rather than absolute edged purity. Tasting profile. Layered, composed, and beautifully integrated. Lee's driven texture, fruit, and acidity move in sync. Never competing, never shouting. Wine at 100, a perfect 100-point benchmark here would be a long-aged Champagne with decades of proven cellar evolution, something like Dom Pérignon Plénitude 2 or Boulanger Reissemann Dégorgé, where extended lees aging unlocks layers of honey, roasted nuts, toast, and umami while maintaining tension. Le Rêve is polished and expressive, but California fruit is not built to rest for decades in the same way. It favors harmony now over the marathon aging potential. History and legacy. Deep Champagne roots, thoughtfully transplanted. A young legacy, but a serious one. Wine at 100, a perfect score belongs to a house like Ruina, the original Champagne house founded in 1729 with UNESCO-listed chalk gruyères beneath Rhônes and nearly 3 centuries of uninterrupted history. Domaine Carneros has lineage, vision, and discipline, but the time, quite literally, is the missing ingredient. Price and quality. At roughly $125 to $150, this is a deliberate luxury. You are paying for long lease aging, vintage specificity, estate fruit, and precision And you get it. Why not 100? In the American market, a 100-point value benchmark might be Schramsberg J. Schram, which can deliver comparable aging and prestige at a slightly softer price. In France, bottles like Louis Rodoré Collection or Top Grower Champagnes can sometimes over-deliver relative to cost. Le Rêve is fair, but not disruptive. Fights in its weight. Holds its own against prestige Blanc de Blancs on the global stage, not mimicking Champagne, standing confidently beside it. Why not 100? Champagne's top-tier Blanc de Blancs still carry an edge in structural tension and long-term cellar authority, shaped by chalk-dominant soils and centuries of refinement, while Le Rêve delivers polished depth and discipline. The old world heavyweights retain a level of historical calibration and age-proven performance that only time and terroir can confer. Final average, I give it 89. Le Rêve is elegance without apology. A Blanc de Blanc that doesn't chase flash, doesn't over-explain itself, and doesn't need permission to be taken seriously. This is California sparkling wine at its most disciplined, its most thoughtful, and its most quietly confident. And with that note, hold the applause, because this wine isn't finished making its case. To judge it properly, we need a fair comparison. Same country, same method, same ambition. Let's go apples to apples and line Le Rêve up against its American peers. Grape composition is state-grown, vintage-dated Chardonnay from Carneros, selected and harvested specifically for traditional method sparkling wine, not diverted still wine production. When compared to American peers like Schramsberg Blanc de Blanc, Le Rêve shows greater depth through specifically longer lees aging and stricter fruit selection, while maintaining freshness and restraint. Why not 100? A small number of US bottlings push concentration slightly further, but often at the expense of balance. Le Rêve chooses composure over maximalism, tasting profile, polished, layered, and fully resolved. Against domestic benchmarks such as Schramsberg J. Schram or Ultramarine Blanc de Blanc, Le Rêve stands out for harmony. Lees-derived texture, fruit, and acidity are integrated rather than stacked, resulting in a wine that feels complete rather than performative. Why not 100? Some American sparklers chase extreme intensity or oxidative depth. Le Rêve prioritizes precision and balance over spectacle. History and legacy. In the American sparkling wine landscape, Domaine Carneros is not young, it's foundational. Founded in 1987 with the direct Champagne lineage, the estate helped define what serious méthode traditionnelle sparkling wine could be in the United States. Alongside producers like Schramsberg Vineyards, Domaine Carneros belongs to the first generation that proved American sparkling wine could earn global respect. Why not 100? American sparkling wine itself is still a developing category. Within that reality, Domaine Carneros sits near the very top. Price versus quality. At $125 to $150, Le Rêve sits at the pinnacle of the American sparkling wine and justifies it. Compared to domestic peers such as Schramsberg J. Schram or limited Ultramarine releases, Le Rêve consistently delivers refinement, age-worthiness, and polish without leaning into express power. Why not 100? A few domestic wines occasionally undercut the price with comparable aging, but rarely with the same consistency and restraint. Fights in its weight. Within the American sparkling category, Le Rêve is not competing, it's anchoring the conversation. It stands shoulder to shoulder with the most serious domestic bottles and often defines the reference point for what prestige means in the US sparkling wine. Why not 100? Because the category itself is still evolving, but Le Rêve is clearly leading it forward. Domestic final, I give it 95. Judged against American sparkling wines, Le Rêve is not an outlier, it's a benchmark. This is California sparkling wine at its most disciplined, its most credible, and its most intentionally fluent. Le Rêve doesn't ask for attention. It earns it through patience, precision, and confidence that never needs to raise its voice. California sparkling at its most disciplined and intentional. The American dream bottled. And with that, we complete today's pour. I'm Julia, and this was Sip Me Maybe, where every glass has a story and no sip goes unnoticed. Sip wisely, and I'll see you at the next pour.